Missable content in game, something that people always say out loud like that tend to get upset nowadays, but missable content or optional content does also make it to where there's something to go back to in a game, and many games are designed where you can't do everything on the first run, so they want you to play the game over again, or it could just be a game that has a lot of stuff in it that you could theoretically get all the stuff in the first playthrough, but it may not be the most easiest task to do, so you gotta play the game again or do things differently. I remember before Dead Rising 4 came out, where I believe one of the directors or producer was doing an interview, and he talked about Dead Rising as if the idea of replay content and replaying the game was something that quote-unquote Dead Rising fans did not want to do, and that people quote-unquote don't want to play the game over again.
I think for me, where I'm like, I'm running low on time, and I'm like, I've got 2 survivors, like I gotta pick one of the 2, and it's like, well, not getting a perfect run this time, all right.
Yeah.
Like,
and then people say, oh, I could just go play it again.
yeah.
People don't want to play it again to get that one other thing.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. That's
something that at that time, and actually to this day and many other Dead Rising fans, found incredibly baffling thing to say, especially for the Dead Rising franchise that is built upon having all this missable content that you can play the game for to find bonuses, find cool circle paths, some of them that aren't actually marked on the game, and stuff like that. But nowadays, especially when it comes to certain franchises, I feel like his words are sadly becoming more and more true. It's kind of like how you had that one interview, I'm almost like I'm Infinite, about people don't care about characters, they care about functions, which at the time got blasted as being insane, only for fighting game fans nowadays to prove that quote true and true more and more. So kind of like a hindsight, oh crap, that they might have been right. And back to the case using Dead Rising example, I mentioned the psychopaths you can find and fight that maybe in the first playthrough you're not prepared for them, or the main story events that maybe you're not prepared for, so to go for a different ending, and the alternate endings, the survivors who could be harder to find and get, and stuff like that. There's many things that you can miss on your first run, and probably will miss in your first run. Hidden weapons, stuff like that can help you out, a whole bunch of cool stuff that adds to the game, having a short runtime about 6 hours or so, but there's plenty of stuff to go after and find and stuff like that. Although the alternate endings aren't anything that great really, but hey, they're there to give you more value. And there is that one psychopath boss fight, I believe his name is Kent, that has 2 different versions of his boss fight depending on if you make it there on time or if you miss a deadline. So there's plenty of stuff for you to replay the game with, and just one of those things that see people enjoy. But even back then, even before all Dead Rising 4 stuff, I saw people treat it as if Dead Rising quote-unquote required a guide, simply because people found the game too difficult specifically, and just needed a guide in order to pretty much get their bearings, even though you could just forgo the plot and just instead make a run about doing side content, leveling up, so you're prepared for the plot on a second playthrough. But let's just say this, Dead Rising 1 was the one game in high school that I kept lending to people, and no one would ever finish it. They just handed it back to me, saying they quit the game during the night of day 1, and just refused to play the game afterwards. It was the one game that no one wanted to actually finish when it came to the people I knew in real life. There's something smaller at the Mega Man X series with the upgrades. Like, you don't need to get all the upgrades, because of X1, the only upgrade you need is the leg parts for the ability for dash, but that's about it. You go through the entire game without the Buster upgrade, although you do get a different one later on mandatory, so the best example, with the head upgrade and the chest upgrade, you don't really need them. And because Mega Man X3, a lot of the cool stuff in that game is optional stuff to either find or figure out the right thing to do in order to unlock it. And it's one of the things that why Mega Man X3 is my favorite Mega Man X game, although I know a lot of people generally don't care for X3 at all. But it's one of those things where even something a smaller game could have the replay value of just hidden new stuff for you to find and get. I remember this one thing in Mega Man X4, this Buster upgrade that I was trying so hard to get, and eventually did get to it, only to find out there were 2 variants to the Buster upgrade in X4, made me go, I finally got here, now I have to pick? Kind of thing where it's like, oh look, boss incentive, which is freaking cool they added in the fact of, hey, here's still this missable, but now you can find another playthrough, or just something hidden that the player needs to put in more effort to figure out how to obtain. RPGs also tend to be a big thing with running a replay value, not only with the amount of side quests that there are, but there could be games like, for example, Final Fantasy V or Romancing Saga 2, where there's so many variants to gameplay, and there's a lot you can do differently in another playthrough and switch things up, which keeps the gameplay fresh and everything. Although when it comes to RPGs, people tend to cite more the story as being more important, so they kind of just discount the fact of how much variety an RPG can have in gameplay, which is incredibly disappointing to me. People discount that, see, well, the story's done, so why would I play the game ever again, kind of thing. Even though that's what we could do with gameplay, or even something like, let's say, freaking show me Tensei. What kind of party you want to get with the demons and stuff like that you can take with you, or different choices in the narrative or stuff like that. But people tend to be content that once the story's over, the one thing they did is done, and that's all they need. Which then brings me to this point, when it comes to how people then play Persona, where so many people keep either trying to or tell others to play Persona with a guide. Like, the idea that a game that people boast, look how many social links and stuff you can do, and it adds replay value, only for them to basically throw that out the window because they want to perfect the game on the first run, and that's it. They don't want to actually play the game again any way, shape, or form. They want everything done in the first run. And like I said, the games like Persona, you can do stuff in the first run. It'll be difficult without a guide. So when people keep saying, you have to use a guide, you don't have to do jack all. No, you don't. Because anything you miss, you can just do another playthrough. Well, now you carry over your social stats, so it's easier to do. But people just hate the idea for some reason of ever playing a Persona game ever again, so they just instead decide that nope, they'll just have a guide ready and just follow it strictly, letting it control all their choices. Even though there's a point where Persona 4 and 5 remove consequences from social links, people are like, no, gotta follow a guide and get to see everything possible in this one run, nothing else. Hell, I already made a video about people complaining that Persona 4's true ending, when it comes to Persona 3, 4, and 5, is the easiest to miss. People complain as if that's bad game design. No, it was very good game design because it trusted the player to make the correct gameplay choices and combine the story and gameplay in a good way. But instead, people complain to this day that that's apparently bad design, that the game trusts you to know what you're doing. And sorry, the game had faith in you, I guess. But like I said in the video, believe in yourself. You can figure it out. The game gives you all the clues you need. But, like I said, people treat it as if, oh, you need a guide for Persona 4's true ending. No, you don't. Certain Tales of games also have plenty of stuff that is missable, although that one people complain that they're too missable. Like, it's stuff that you naturally wouldn't even think to really do at times, especially games like Tales of Vesperia, where there is stuff that is missable that, once again, it's optional, you don't need to do it, but it's the fact of how and what they expect you to do gets kind of ridiculous in order to even see the thing that was optional to begin with. So that one, a case of where there are some things you blatantly could not figure out to do that you were supposed to do or ideally could do. Like this one moment I think of where you're leaving a locale after a major event just happened, you're being told to hurry out of there, but if you walk back in, you see a bonus thing. And it's like, why put that there when you just told the player to leave? Like that kind of weirdness where certain things are way too missable kind of thing, where you could easily just miss something that honestly you probably wouldn't have figured out. Like the Persona 4 example I gave with true ending, this is the kind of stuff that honestly you probably wouldn't even figure out without a guide because of how way too specific it is. Which that leads me to the point when it comes to, I brought up the Dead Rising 4 interview thing, is the fact of, not for the sake of because people want to play a game again, it's the fact there are many people who actually believe that missable content in a game is bad game design and that everything should be viewable in the first playthrough, and no, because there are games that typically either have stuff like, let's say, something like Double Survivor, we need to go through a route or choices, so of course the other choices you can't see on that playthrough because of how that alters the story and the scenarios you go through. But if you want to have everything viewable one playthrough, you'd only have the one actual narrative and nothing else, and you couldn't have those choices. Mass Effect also probably wouldn't function like that because of all the choices you make and what happens to stuff like, oh, character dynamics, or oh, the crew members, Mass Effect 2, who survives a suicide mission, and stuff like that, where it would just ultimately change stuff. Granted, because of Mass Effect, it's also a kind of game where, despite the choices, the main story goes on, but the variants the characters bring about are completely missed because of the fact of, oh, maybe this character's not here, this character isn't loyal, or maybe this character bit the dust at some point, and stuff like that. Maybe you didn't even recruit this character, kind of thing. So there's stuff like that that would be completely gone if every game was designed for every possible thing to be viewable in one single run. Some games are like that, more linear, but other games strive to try and add more cool stuff to them, add more choices. Fire Emblem, I mentioned before, but the whole entire freaking mode where you just have the characters not die forever after they get defeated in combat. Like I said, Fire Emblem fans complain about, but these are people who are willing to redo entire maps if it means they have to keep the characters with them because they want to see all the content possible, and so they need all the characters with them in order to get all that stuff there. Granted, that also highlights an issue of Fire Emblem's gameplay design, where because they kind of expect you to lose characters, they give you so many characters that you don't know what to do with, and they may not be the best written. In fact, Fire Emblem is not exactly very good when it comes to writing, but it's one of those things where people want the characters, want everyone with them, every possible recruit, every possible thing, so they are willing, these are fans who are willing to go through the effort of making sure every character survives, even though you could just pick the mode where every character survives and everything, but for some reason people just refuse to pick out of some pride for some reason. But those are fans who are dedicated to redoing it, replaying things, no matter what it takes. A different kind of replay value is something from Naughty Dog games, specifically when it comes to Uncharted and Last of Us. Where specifically Uncharted, you can find little collectible treasures and all that, but I believe the more those collect, the more you have the ability to unlock these extra modes, which could be cheat codes or filters and stuff like that, or it could also be stuff that alters the game a bit, such as changing character models to be someone else at that time. And I believe, I'm not sure Uncharted 4 kept that, but I think Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 at least, it would also appear in the cutscenes as well, which also led to the unlockable character, Donut Drake, which is just Nathan Drake, but now he's real big and fat. But I like the touch that they gargled up his voice as if he's constantly eating something at all times.
That wire. That's our way down. Go, go.
All right, all right.
No, crap!
Kind of detail, and Uncharted fans did really like Donut Drake, but Uncharted 3 then removed Donut Drake and all the other collectibles because of the fact of it just didn't have unlockables initially, but then the PS4 remaster that is buggy as all hell added back in that kind of stuff, so you can get Donut Drake back. Until Uncharted 4, the devs intentionally did not include Donut Drake because they thought Donut Drake was an insensitive joke, even though people like Donut Drake because of the fact that it's super goofy entire thing. And also the awkwardness of models clipping into him because of where his hand's supposed to be. But people like Donut Drake and everything, but I was just gone. But Uncharted 4 still had unlockable costs, unlockable filters, unlockable stuff that you only do in a second playthrough and everything that people generally just really don't really talk about much when it comes to those games. Or Last of Us. Hey, here are different costumes for freaking Ellie and Joel. My favorite one being the one which gets that Jack and Daxter themed outfit, which is just having fun with it. That's something you can only use on a second playthrough, so you have to play the game again. In order to use that, people like unlockable costumes. I mean, like people like Spider-Man games. Spider-Man costumes are fun. But I guess some people don't really see it as big necessity for replay value kind of thing, I guess. I just wanted to ramble about just the idea that it feels like people like the concept of replay value in a game, something to look forward to after being in the game and doing something different. But I swear when it comes to reality nowadays, some people just don't actually care for it and complain that, well, I can't do it all in one run because I don't ever plan to replay this game ever again. If they even make it that far, because some people may not even freaking bother to do type content, period, or may not even bother to finish the game to begin with. It just feels so weird that see more and more people nowadays suggest going into a game with a guide because, oh, there's stuff you could miss, so here's a guide. Like, don't you want replay value or something different? Nope. Don't want any of that. Just want everything done the first playthrough. If I can't do that, then that's quote-unquote bad game design. And just like the function for the functions infinite has become reality, I'm starting to sadly believe that when Rising 4 interview is actually becoming reality, that people don't want to play a game again. Granted, that could be because nowadays there's so many games coming out that people don't want to do that. But there are people I've seen, or fan bases I've seen, that do replay games. Like, Thunder Blade's short runtime also benefits it because of, hey, look at the multiple endings you got. What I want you to put more effort to unlock, and also unlocks a whole entire new locale and everything that people generally do go back for and replay that game 3 times, and then replay it again because Shift Up is still updating that game with new quests to this day. My goodness, how was Shift Up not nominated for Best Ongoing Game Support in 2024's Game of the Year Awards? What the actual hell? They are still updating Thunder Blade. They have no reason to do so other than they just like the game and like the fan base, and that's freaking cool. So that is one fan base that does that. Persona's one where I do see people tend to replay Persona, but the fact that a lot of people still believe that first playthrough, go in entirely with the guides, you can do everything. At that point, we're gonna replay the game for you. We did everything in the first attempt. Like, it's one thing if people figure out in the first playthrough how to do all the social links, everything. That's them being smart and good on them. But you're just going in and telling people to explicitly play with a guide and don't make any choices themselves. It's like, what are you doing? What are you actually doing here? kind of thing. Granted, the maybe side of guides are a bad thing. Guides are not a bad thing. Guides are very helpful. That's a different topic. Just like how actual choices in games are a different topic video. But as I want to talk about specifically when it comes to replay value, how some people complain about the idea of doing that. I remember this one video that was on Double Survivor that complained that, oh, they didn't really care much about a character, but it admitted they didn't really do any events for that character, and they got that character killed. So they had not much of an opinion on them, but also admitted that was their own fault for not putting any effort for the character and all that. But it's the kind of thing that would go away if Double Survivor, let's say, everything's done in the first playthrough. Like, no, I got something that practice can look forward to as another playthrough and all that. Or the fact of, hey, I can tell someone else who made different choices to see their experience, and it makes it to a more social thing entirely. Isn't that fun? Isn't that great? Oh, just me? I know it's not just me. I know as far as it's just me. But that's just something I want to talk about when it comes to replay value and missable things that feels like people really get upset about. Granted, I can understand if the upset is if there's a choice they make that feels like a good option, the game says actually has a bad option, and they get upset to replay the game. Like, Resident Evil 7 has that, where there are some people who like there's a choice mid-game that changes your ending and everything, also adds an extra boss fight. But there's a choice that I see some people treat it as there's an easy choice, I can F it up. Other people feel like, why was the answer I felt more right somehow the wrong one, kind of thing. So that's a whole different topic. But like I said, feels like people nowadays like the idea of replay value, both the amount of games coming out, people want to spend more time with other games or try out more stuff. It feels like actually replaying the game is something people don't actually do anymore, unless the game makes it worth their while. I'm interested to see how many people actually replay Silent Hill F, since that game boasted alternate endings only for New Game Plus and on the first playthrough. But just see some people actually go through that game again for the alternate endings, kind of thing. So to ramble about, alright then, go out there, play some games, whether it be playing a replay value, maybe for a second time, third time, maybe a fourth time. I remember playing Batman Arkham City like 4 times when it came out. And there was a reason for me to do that one. I just like Arkham City, kind of thing. So go out there, play games, whether have replay value or not. Sure, use a guide if you want to. I'm not gonna judge you. No one should be judging you. I'll just be confused. I'll be confused, but I won't judge you. Alright then, good day.